Hello, everybody, and welcome to Perfectly Frank Conversations. I'm your host, Frank Clark, and I'm pleased to welcome as my guest today, Frederika Roberts. Welcome, Fred. How are you?
I'm very well, Frank. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. So I put out there as a topic to discuss for today is resilience for entrepreneurs. So we want to talk a little bit about that. But first, let me just give a little bit of background for Fred. And you go by Fred, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So Fred got basically started out, I guess, as a teacher, right?
Yeah, that was one of the things I did. Yeah, quite a few years ago.
One of the things, and started in teaching. Did a postgraduate studies in education, became a teacher, and then later on became a recruiter. A recruiter, working for a headhunter, I guess.
Sorry.
And working with a headhunter, was that?
I did do some headhunting as well, but it was also sort of contingency recruitment. So companies would come to us and we'd advertise roles in a very specialist niche market. I was recruiting in the food industry for about 8 years.
Nice. And now runs her own business and is a speaker and delivers workshops and seminars all over the place. Is always also married and has 2 teenage daughters.
Yeah, for my sins, yeah. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, that's going to keep you busy.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about how you got interested in just the subject of happiness and decided to become a speaker on the topic just of happiness.
Okay, well, basically, it is actually through me being a mum and having 2 daughters. Both my daughters were born with quite severe, life-threatening congenital heart defects. And yeah, that's presented quite a few challenges over the years. I won't take you through all of that because that would take far more than this blab, but to summarize it, basically, they've both had cardiac arrests out of hospital, which nobody generally survives, but they have, and they've done very well. They've both had open heart surgery. My youngest has had 2 open heart surgeries, and they've had lots and lots of unplanned hospital stays as well over the years, various emergencies, etc. So as I kept going through this, and I was working at the time, and in fact, when my youngest had her first open heart surgery, we'd been waiting for months for the date for her surgery, and I'd applied to start teaching after I'd had a few years out with the kids. And so I'd literally started in a new school in September. I was teaching part-time. I had 2 days in my new school when I got the phone call from the hospital saying, we've got a date, can you come in next week for the surgery? And I was subsequently off work for 6 weeks with my daughter. So it has presented plenty of challenges, but I have worked throughout all the years of being a parent with my children and the surgeries. And every time I was in a new work environment or I made new friends, people would keep saying to me, well, how do you do it? You're always very happy. You seem to really enjoy life and to have a very happy family. How do you do that when all of this stuff keeps happening to you? And eventually, when enough people asked me, I thought maybe instead of telling people one at a time, I should actually tell people in a wider context. This kind of came about not long after my eldest daughter had her cardiac arrest, which got me to really think about what I wanted to do in terms of my life and how I spent my time anyway. And at the time, we were in the middle of a horrific recession and the recruitment business was really struggling. And I was kind of looking at, do I really want to do this forever? And eventually I extricated myself out of the recruitment business, sold my shares back to my business partner. And that's when I was able to really focus on what I wanted to do. And that's where the speaking came about. So I started by writing my book, Recipe for Happiness, and then started speaking in businesses, at networking events, etc., and a lot of my work in schools as well.
Now, how old were your daughters at the time when they had the open heart surgery and the cardiac arrest?
Well, Hannah, my youngest, had her cardiac arrest when she was 10 days old.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she got a condition called bronchiolitis, which sometimes newborn babies get as a result of having had a cold, and it can just happen. And because of this, she stopped breathing, and that caused a cardiac arrest. We were phenomenally lucky because my midwife literally knocked on the door for a postnatal check as my daughter's heart stopped, and was able to resuscitate her there and then. And then we spent about a month in hospital while they got her better. So she was 10 months old when she had her first open heart surgery, and she was 14 years old when she had her second one. She will probably need another one every 10 or 15 years, but she's doing fantastically well. She's doing her GCSE exams, which here in the UK are the exams you do at age 16 at school. And one of those is actually sports studies, and she wants to become a cardiac surgeon. So she's she's doing really, really well. And Charlie, our eldest, she's 18 now. She had her open heart surgery when she was 4, just before she started school.
Wow.
And then she was doing brilliantly, and the cardiac arrest came completely out of the blue. She just didn't wake up one morning just before she went to school. Again, I cannot believe how lucky we were. If it had happened in the middle of the night, she wouldn't be here, but it happened at 7 o'clock in the morning when her alarm was going off. And I went in to check on her, found that she wasn't waking up. And we managed to obviously get an ambulance over here very quickly. And she was actually back home 16 days later. She was in a coma for 8 days, and then she was back home in 16 days. So amazing. And she's doing her A-levels, which are the final exams you do before you leave school, and planning on going to university in September. And just because she hasn't put us through enough stress, her life ambition now is to become a journalist, and to particularly be a war correspondent in the Middle East. That's so I'll never sleep again, I think.
I figure she's been through so much. It's like she's got nothing to lose, I guess.
She must think she's just immortal or something,
like Superman, invulnerable or something. Right?
So it's been an interesting journey, this parenting life.
Yeah, I guess it has.
Yes, absolutely. So that's how kind of the happiness came out of that, because I am genuinely a very happy person, and I'm a very, very grateful person, and we are an incredibly happy family. I mean, that doesn't mean that everything's rosy all the time. There's plenty of shouting and slamming of doors and everything you'd expect with teenage girls in the house, but we are a happy family. And I really wanted to share what I'd learned with people, because it makes such a big difference in terms of your ability to function and to excel and to really get the most out of life, not just at home, but in your working life as well. And especially when you're running a business, it's really important that you have the tools at your disposal to pick yourself up. And resilience kind of has come out of that as well, because I mean, to me, happiness is almost synonymous with resilience anyway. It's that ability to make the most out of things when things are good, and to pick yourself back up when things aren't. And so I developed the Resilience Wellbeing Success Program, which is running very, very well in schools here in the UK. I launched it with 2 other speakers, Elizabeth Wright, who's a triple Paralympic medalist, and she does the success part of the program, unsurprisingly, and Jane Snell, who's a double cancer survivor, and she does the well-being part of the program. And again, we wanted to kind of bring what we'd learned to people, and with resilience, with it being my part of the program, obviously, and what I'm here to talk about today, it's certainly something that I've had to develop over the years, the ability to keep on bouncing back.
You're basically one of the world's leading experts, just based on your life experience with your daughters and the heart surgeries and cardiac arrests. I mean, you've got to be.
And I'm becoming a bit of an expert in cardiac conditions as well, which is a bit worrying. But I tell you something else in terms of resilience, a very quick story. Just as we were launching the program last September, as schools started up, and as the program would indicate, it's Resilience, Wellbeing, Success. It's in that order. So all the parts where we go into school start with resilience. So it starts with me going into school and working with primary school kids. And in September, I got the worst chest infection of my life, and I lost my voice completely. And so we demonstrated great teamwork, because I actually went into all of my sessions while my colleague spoke for me, and I stood there and smiled. The kids thought it was amazing, because they thought we were pretending that there was something wrong with my voice, and they thought it was all an act, and they found it hilarious. So we delivered the whole of the pilot schools, all of them with me having no voice voice whatsoever. And I've actually only just really found my own voice back, with a lot of work and a lot of difficulties along the way, and it's something that I'm going to have to work on for the rest of my life. So again, it's like if life has thrown a few things to kind of go, okay, you're talking about resilience now, happiness wasn't enough, let's just throw a few more things your way to just test how resilient you really are.
Well, God bless you for, going through everything that you've gone through, personally and with your daughters, and remained happy and resilient. So obviously you definitely have a lot of life experience and a lot to teach. So this is fantastic.
And hopefully proof that the stuff I talk about really does work. And what I found really interesting is I came at this from a life experience perspective. And when I started going out there to talk about it, I started looking a little bit at some of the research that's been done on it, particularly on happiness. And imagine my shock and horror when I realized that all these things that I thought I'd invented for myself to stay happy and resilient had actually been researched by people before. And I thought, damn, I thought I'd got something brand new. But the great thing about that is that obviously I bring my life experience to it, but it also gives reassurance to those people that I talk to that when I do say, these techniques work, these tools work, and some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, it's not just one person saying, well, this worked for me. It's actually, this worked for me and I found out through experience, but this stuff has also been researched and has been shown to work.
Exactly. People like that authentication or whatever, that, you're not the only one just saying it, that other people do the same kind of stuff. So that's
exactly.
great. Tell us a little bit about, your work with the resilience training and what you're doing with that. Just expand a little bit more on the resilience programs that you're developed.
Well, the resilience program, so it's a program that's in 3 parts. It's resilience, well-being, success. At the moment, it's in primary schools, but we are also looking at bringing that into businesses because we think there's a real need out there for that. And it goes very well hand in hand. So the first part of the program is really looking at tools that can develop your resilience. And in this program at the moment, we're focusing on 3, but there are lots of other things that you can do for resilience, and that'll be maybe part 2, 3, 4, 5 of the program. But initially we're focusing on gratitude and the importance of really being thankful for the good things in your life in terms of allowing you to bounce back from setbacks, and that's applicable to any aspect of life, and that's really important as well if you are running your own business as well. And then the second aspect is being able to ask for help and helping other people, and especially when you're thinking about your audience today and entrepreneurs and business people. I think sometimes we do think that because we're in business for ourselves, we have to do it all for ourselves and we have to be able to do everything, and that it's some kind of sign of weakness if we ask for help. But actually asking for help is really important, and it makes us more successful and it makes us achieve more. But equally, even if we are in business for ourselves as an entrepreneur, or if we're working as a manager in a business, for example, being able to help other people is really important. So sometimes if you are working with other people and somebody else is a little bit overworked, sort of saying, can I help you with that? It really will help them, but it actually makes you more resilient as well, because it boosts your well-being, that lovely glowing feeling you get when you help somebody. And you can do that as a self-employed person, as an entrepreneur. You can attend networking events, you can do things like these blabs, that hopefully helps people, right. All of this kind of thing, and that actually helps you get more resilient as well as being able to help other people. And then the third aspect we talk about in terms of resilience is the ability to make time for the things that you enjoy. And again, I think it's quite common in people who are in business, whether for themselves or someone else, that they spend an awful lot of time at work and on their work, whether they're at home or not. And they kind of neglect themselves and their personal lives a little bit, and eventually that leads to burnout, and that doesn't do you or the business any good. So we really stress the aspect of making time for yourself and doing things that make your heart sing, and that's the same that we tell the kids as well. You know, if they're revising for tests, etc., they need to still take time out to go outside and play. They still need to do their sports and all of that, and as part of that, I really talk about laughter. Laughter is a big passion of mine. I'm a laughter yoga leader as well, so nice. And it's a fantastic thing. It's the best medicine, it really is. And when I lost my voice, in fact, one of the things that I've struggled with the most is that the condition I have affects my laugh, and it makes me cough every time I laugh. And even now, it's a bit of a struggle. And it's like, but I need to laugh. I need to laugh every day. And it makes such a difference. You know, it releases endorphins. It works all your muscles. It's a proper workout for the body and the soul to laugh. So, and I think, you know, everybody who's been in business for any length of time will find that they have days when you just want to fling your computer out of the window and you don't want to speak to anyone. And you just think, why am I doing this? It's just not worth it. And if you can actually just take that moment, and even if you really don't feel like laughing, just laugh for no reason whatsoever. And that's the beauty of laughter yoga, learning to just do that, even if nothing's funny. Do that for about 10 minutes and you'll feel better. So that's the resilience part. And then my colleagues talk about well-being and success. And in the school setting, we actually have a lot of activities and lesson plans, etc., that the teachers then deliver as well without us. And we also have a component where we talk to the teachers and where we talk to the parents as well, so that they're getting a fully rounded program. But in a business setting, we would go in and basically do a half day or a full day workshop with, for example, a management team, etc., doing all the activities with the attendees.
Nice. So yeah, going back to the laughter part, I mean, I'm a big believer in it as well. My grandmother was like my first mentor, I guess, in that, because she just loved to laugh and was always telling stories, no matter what, you know, was telling stories, and she could make me laugh and cry and laugh again within seconds. It was just amazing. And she had taught me, you know, as just from a little boy, that, you know, you might as well be laughing, because if you cry, nobody wants to be around you. But if you're laughing, everybody wants to be around you, right? So why not laugh?
She sounds like a wonderful woman.
Yeah, she was fantastic. And I've actually looked into laughter yoga a little bit and watched some videos, I think, on it. And I've done some laughter exercises in some workshops that I do here in New York City. So,
brilliant.
Yes, so I'm a big believer in that. And I think it's important. You got to surround yourself with people in your life, and especially in business, who have a good sense of humor and that can roll with the punches. Because when things get bad for you, you need people who have a sense of humor about stuff. Because sometimes, you know what? You're going to be in the thick of it. You're going to be in the muck, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you might as well laugh about it, because instead of like letting it be a story, you're going to laugh about it later. Why not just laugh about it now?
Exactly. It's, you know, it's sometimes there really is just nothing to do in that moment, and if you just laugh about it, it does just release that tension at least, and once you release that initial tension, it actually clears your mind to possibly come up with solutions that you otherwise wouldn't be thinking of, because when you are so in the thick of it, you really can't think of ways out of difficulties sometimes.
Right. So a good friend of mine, a colleague, and sadly he's no longer with us, but he was one of the funniest people I knew. And I asked him once, it's like, you know, how do you come up with stuff so quickly? He always had like these witty one-liners and things he would drop in. And he's like, well, one of the first questions I always ask me is, what's funny about this? So he's always training his mind to think, what's funny about this? What's funny about this? What's funny about this? And he would come out with some of the funniest lines in some of the worst situations, which would lighten it up. Everybody would get laughing. And then, you know, you'd feel more resourceful and more resilient to be able to tackle the problem, the challenge, whatever it might be. And as an entrepreneur, and, you know, having started several companies, you need to have that, because honestly, no matter what business you're in, bad stuff is going to happen. And if you laugh about it and then, you know, become resilient and resourceful, you're just not going to make it long term.
No, exactly. And that's a really interesting point there. You're saying, you know, bad stuff is going to happen eventually. And I think that's one of the things that I would definitely say when you are in business, in terms of thinking about your resilience, is to not be pessimistic, because I don't want people to go around be gloomy, but to actually accept that part of being in business, part of being alive, in fact, is that actually, you know, stuff will happen.
Yeah,
and that it will happen no matter how you respond to it. It will still happen to you. So if you can actually accept that as a fact of life and as a fact of business, and go from that starting point, and basically when you are looking at business, also kind of when you're planning for your business, not spend too much on that, but actually do think about some of the things that might go wrong, you know, so that you have contingency plans in place, which again will make you more resilient when something does happen. But then as soon as you've got that acceptance, when something does happen, you think, well, that's okay. I knew it was likely to happen. Something was going to go wrong at some point. It's just a hurdle that we have to get over. And now let's look at how we're going to get over this hurdle. Are we going to get over it, under it, around it, through it? You know, but we're going to get through this and come out the other side. And ultimately, if you've got that initial acceptance, then it doesn't come as so much of a shock that things do occasionally not go to plan, and things do go wrong, and sometimes spectacularly so. And then you can find ways around it, and that's a really important tool for resilience, especially in business, I think.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So somebody at Fast Pup had the question, how did you find your business partners, and what was involved in putting your speaking business together? And did you all have a tie to the school system? I see one of your partners has already answered the question, Elizabeth. So do you want to address it yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Liz. Nice to see you. And hi, Fast Pup. Thanks for the question. Yeah, so basically the three of us were professional speakers, all of us speaking in schools, but not only in schools. And we were members of the Professional Speaking Association here in the UK, which is the equivalent of the NSA in America. And as part of that, we formed a mastermind group. There are the three of us plus three other chaps as well in the group, one of whom you've actually interviewed, David Abbott, a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
He's in my mastermind group. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, we did a fantastic interview on the psychology of pricing.
It was brilliant, that one, wasn't it? So yeah, he's in my mastermind group as well, and the three of us just got together and formed RWS. We decided all of us wanted to do something that gave a bit more of a lasting impact than a single speech. So we wanted to develop programs, and then we realized that actually the stuff that we all talk about fitted really well together. So we decided to develop the program together.
Nice. And how frequently do you meet with your mastermind group?
The mastermind group, we meet every 6 weeks. We've been going for about 2.5 years now. And none of us really knew each other at that point. So it's been a very successful group. And that's, again, something else that I would say, you know, in the context of helping other people and asking for help. If you are in business, if you are an entrepreneur, as I was saying earlier, you don't have to go it alone. You can effectively have a virtual board of directors by forming a mastermind group or joining a mastermind group, whether it's something very structured that you join an organization that runs mastermind groups, or whether you just form your own. But by having that support network of people that you absolutely trust, that you can really share your business information with, pricing, difficulties, successes, and all of that, and then actually get together on a regular basis to hold each other accountable to what you say you're going to do as well. Because that's really important. If you are an entrepreneur and you're working either only for yourself, or you are running the businesses that you have set up, quite often there is that lack of accountability in terms of, well, you know, I said I was going to do that, but I really don't feel like doing that today, etc. If you're in a mastermind group, not only are you getting the help and support, and you've got lots of different expertise to bring to the table, but also you do become accountable. Because if you say, I'm going to do this to grow my business, and then you go back 6 weeks later or whatever, and you haven't done it, it's, you know, you don't want to be that person who hasn't done what they said they were going to do to grow their business.
Exactly. So there is like the accountability factor, and it's also like, you know, kind of like the support, and it's, you know, like you said, the virtual board of directors. So I'm a huge believer in mastermind, and Kate from Fast Pup has a question. How did you find your mastermind group? This is a mystery to me. I'd love to address it as well, but I'll let you take the first shot at it.
Well, in my case, we were all members and associates of the Professional Speaking Association. So our mastermind group is made up of all speakers, but in different sectors. And one person in that group sort of knew all of us as acquaintances through the association. I also happened to know him through having been going to Toastmasters as a speaker as well. And he wanted to be in a mastermind group, so we were all based in the same region of the UK, and he approached all of us individually and said, would you like to be in a mastermind group? And we all said yes. So we had one initial meeting to decide whether we could work together in that setting and whether we shared the same goals in terms of what we wanted out of the mastermind group. And we started off, there were actually 8 of us at that first meeting, and 6 of us decided to carry on as a group.
Nice. So, yeah, and essentially with mastermind groups, I think, yeah, exactly, Kate. That's where I was going to go. If you can't find one, start your own. So if you know of, half a dozen people, and it doesn't even have to be that many, you could start with 2 or 3 who have similar goals, aspirations, dreams that could benefit from, regularly meeting with each other, holding each other accountable. Then that's all you really need. And then over time, if you find out that you need, additional people or other resources, then between the 2 or 3 of you, you'll be able to say, well, who we should invite is we should ask so-and-so, or we need an architect, or we need a, whatever it might be. You got to, determine what it is you want out of the group, and then just make the decision. You're going to find those resources, those people, and then put it out there and start asking, how do we get that architect, that engineer, that publicist, that, business coach, whatever it might be, and get them into our group so that we can all grow and learn from each other. Yeah, exactly. I've used mastermind groups extensively throughout my career and my life, and it's helped me enormously in identifying, everything from employees to investors to business partners, and just expanded my thinking to, get better personal results in my life as well. So I'm a huge believer, and always be networking, right? Always be networking. Yeah. You'll find, that you're going to be introduced to more people. Go to networking events, go to things like a Toastmasters or a BNI or the equivalent that you mentioned over there in the UK. And you're going to find like-minded people. So inevitably, you're going to find some that you get along better with, that are in the same sort of place where you're at in your life or in your business, and, figure out how you can work together. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really the key, that when you are in business, you should never isolate yourself. Go out there, meet as many people as you possibly can, make as many connections as you possibly can. And actually, even with people who are your competitors, network with them, get to know them, because quite often you might be competitors, you might be working in a similar field, but you will each have your own uniqueness, your own USP, your own niche within that sector. So actually, by networking with the people who are your competitors, you can still help each other grow each other's businesses. You can find ways to collaborate. You can find ways to help each other within that market. And the other thing is as well to network and meet people who, whenever I go to networking events, and I'm sure you've had a similar experience, there's unfortunately a lot of people who think that networking is selling, and they go to networking groups, etc., and they're all about, what can I sell? And actually, if you go to a networking group or an organization and you think, well, who can I help, first of all, and what can I learn while I'm here, and who can I connect with whom? I love it, that feeling when you've met somebody at an event and then somebody else comes up to you and says, oh, I need this, that, and the other. And you think, I know just the person because I've met this person and I've been meeting them over and over the last few months at these events. And you can connect these people. And what actually sometimes comes out of that is that you find synergies between businesses that work really well. To give you an example, with the Resilience Wellbeing Success Program,
I've been going to a local networking group of women in business here in my town, and for about 2 or 3 years now. And there's a lady there that I always knew did websites and marketing. And at one of those events, I did one of my talks there, and I mentioned that I was doing this program in schools, and she said, I had no idea that you worked in schools and in primary schools. She said, I've actually just developed an app that's aimed at schools. So have you got any contacts as head teachers, etc., that you could introduce me to? And I said, well, actually, that's really interesting, because we've been thinking that we wanted an app for our program. So let's talk. And within about 3 weeks, she developed an app for us, but we'd also been able to introduce her to schools that we're working with, who are starting to sign her up to use the app for the school to communicate with their parents. So actually, you know, by doing that, kind of just simply connecting with people and having an open mind as to what you might learn, who you might meet, who you could help, a lot of amazing things have come out of that. And I find that happens an awful lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Malcolm Gladwell writes about this in The Tipping Point, how, you know, movements or trends get started, and it often starts with connectors. Okay, so connectors are the people who belong in, let's say, multiple different types of social groups or business groups or what have you. And because of that, they develop these larger networks. So when they hear about something in one of their networks, let's say it's a music group, they can pass that information along to the business group, and then that flows on to, let's say, an architectural group, because they've got those connections and are able to connect the dots and make those introductions and make things happen. And inevitably, those are the people who developed, you know, the bigger businesses and the bigger circles of influence. So become a connector, figure out how you can introduce people to each other, go to more networking events, and go outside of your expertise. Because here's another thing about networking events that a lot of people do wrong is, you know, people go to, you know, let's say you're in the speaking business, okay? People go only to networking events that are around speakers or speaking, whereas maybe you should be going to, like, you know, a realtors convention where they actually need speakers, right? Or a stockbrokers convention where they actually need speakers, and you'll find people, you know, you don't have as many competitors there, and you have people who actually have a need for your services. So you got to learn to think outside the box and not just like, oh, I'm a speaker, so I should join speakers groups. It's like, go to other groups outside of your expertise, and inevitably you're going to find people who are going to want to connect you, because you become unique in that atmosphere, because you're not, you know, other realtors are all talking to other realtors, and now you're different. You're a speaker, you know, you become more interesting in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. And equally, when you do network within your own area of expertise, is not to forget that you can still refer business to each other. I mean, I know it happens an awful lot in the speaking world.
Oh, I think you froze up there. Are you with me, Fred, or did I freeze up? I'm going to refresh just in case it's me. You can hear me, Kate? Okay, Fred, if you can still hear me, I'm going to ask you to refresh. I'm going to kick you out and ask you to call back in. There we go.
And
all right. Apologize, guys. I'm going to just pause the recording for a second. Sorry about that. We had a little technical challenge, but we've got Fred back with us here. So,
showing technical resilience as well there, you see.
Yeah, exactly. I had a scientist I used to work with, and we were doing a demo, and we had brought together a big meeting of investors, and we had this big demo plan to show how our technology worked. And inevitably, of course, it failed, like right in the middle of like a big audience. We couldn't get something to work right. And he says, yeah, he said, science experiments never work when you do them in public.
No.
Kind of funny for the moment.
What we call Sod's Law in the UK.
Call what?
Sod's Law in the UK, when things always
Murphy's
go
Law.
wrong when you least want them to.
Yeah, Murphy's Law over here.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the resilience program. When is the next one coming up, and Is that a
Well,
global event, or is that a local in-person event?
all the time. So we are constantly in schools. We are looking at the moment at going into businesses as well, and potentially doing some open workshops. But because we've been so busy with the schools, we haven't pursued that just yet. But we've got kind of a bit of a growth plan in place at the moment. So hopefully there's going to be more public stuff. But also, now that I've done my first Blab, I think there is potential for us to start doing some resilience, wellbeing, success Blabs as well. So I would say watch this space. And if Liz is still there, I'll just say, see if you agree. But I think that would probably work really well as well.
Yeah, this has been a fantastic platform for me, both in terms of building a new network, building relationships, and communicating with great people such as yourself, connecting with ideas, and connecting other people with the ideas. So if you're a speaker, if you're a trainer of some kind, this is a fantastic platform to use for those purposes.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely watch this space for some resilience, wellbeing, success Blabs. But in terms of sort of giving you maybe some more tips and things for entrepreneurs as well in terms of resilience, one of the things that I would recommend that you kind of look at as well is not to shy away from challenges in terms of creating your own challenges, because quite often when you have your own area of expertise, you get to a point where maybe running your business has become more comfortable because you've been doing it for a while. And then when you think about going into a new venture, a new direction, it might be a little bit scary, and you might think, oh, well, it might fail. I'm not sure that that's where my expertise is. I'm not sure I'm particularly good at that. But actually, we become more resilient through challenges. That's why I've got oodles of resilience, because stuff keeps happening to me. And on top of that, I'm an inspirational speaker, and so it's great. Even when stuff happens to me, I can laugh, as we were saying before, and I can say, well, the great thing about being an inspirational speaker is the more stuff happens to you, the more you have to talk about. So it's more material. It's a bit like comedians, isn't it? The more sort of mishaps, the more comedy material they have. But
right,
actually,
the more stories you've got.
Yeah, but equally, you can actually deliberately put yourself into the path of obstacles by challenging yourself outside of your comfort zone when it comes to your knowledge, your expertise, and by taking yourself in directions that you perhaps wouldn't have considered. Because when you overcome those challenges through teaching yourself, learning, networking with people that can help you with them, whichever way you do it, you actually become more resilient as an individual, and your business will become more resilient because it's jumped through a few more hoops to kind of get stronger and bigger, etc. So
Exactly.
Don't be afraid of challenges, even when sometimes they seem like a step too far. It's just take that leap of faith and go for it, because whichever way it goes, even if it fails spectacularly, you will have learned something from it that you can take forward in terms of growing your business.
Yeah, and I'm a huge believer in challenging yourself, not just in your business, but also in your personal life. Take on challenges, take on physical challenges, things that are around fitness or exercise, or things that are around relationships, things that are around pushing the envelope and making yourself better. Because as you said, when you get better in your personal relationship, or better in your fitness, or better in your spiritual life, it's going to make you stronger in your business as well. Those resource experiences translate well and make you more resilient, make you a better business person, a better entrepreneur. Exactly.
And I can see that there's a question there from the Fast Pub.
That's Kate, is her name.
Kate, hi. Hi, Kate. So what am I and my team putting in place to help our recovery on those days and situations we suddenly need to become resilient? We seem to know how to cover for each other. I think we've kind of done it instinctively, really. As the business grows, we will have to systemize things a little bit more, and we are doing that, even in terms of breaking up the workload and who does what and looking at our strengths. But as we are still within our first year of operation as a team and as a business together, a lot of that has really come out of listening to each other, paying attention to what's going on, and really thinking that whatever happens, we are a team, and therefore we will step in for each other and do whatever needs to be done to ensure that the business gets what it needs, and that as a team we continue. So if one of us is unwell, as happened unfortunately an awful lot to me last year, the other two step in. If one of us has other things going on with our other speaking businesses, etc., then again the others step in. And that's the beauty of not going it alone and collaborating with other people, is that you have that little bit of a support network and a bit of a safety net if life gets in the way, if other business gets in the way, etc. And we've got really good at we are very, very honest with each other as well. So about what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, and where we are best placed to kind of take on certain roles within the business as well. I don't know if that answers the question, Kate.
Yeah, and I think you can't overstate enough the importance of team and having that built-in redundancy, because redundancy creates resilience. So I many years ago and to this day continue as a rock climber. Okay, so I have climbed some big cliffs, hundreds of feet high with the ropes and protection and everything else like that. So when you're basically 100, 200, 300 feet off of the ground, you want to make sure that you've got protection, right? But you want to make sure that your protection is redundant, so that if one of your pieces or ropes fails, you've got a backup in place that you're not going to die, right? You're not going to go down, because your life is literally at stake in somebody's hands, okay? So when you're setting up your business, you want to have that same kind of built-in redundancy, and you want to have a team that you trust. There's another question or comment from Prof Services 7 here. I presented new business ideas that was a spin-off of my business in this network, and other members of the network stole the business idea and started that business without me. So no, I don't want to tell anybody my business ideas until I've already started the business. Well, part of that is, first, you've got to develop relationships with people that you trust, that you can rely on, and get to know, that you can trust them before you start discussing ideas. You need to know that they're on the same page with you, that you're going to work together. And honestly, you never can tell completely, right? But you want to get to know people before you just start sharing ideas and things. Start with small things and build up to higher and deeper levels of trust, right? Yeah,
absolutely. It's choose wisely who you share your confidential ideas and information with. And as you say, Frank, you can never be 100%, but I think as long as you are cautious enough that you're not telling the whole world stuff before it's ready to be out there, because there will be people out there who will pinch your ideas. I think it's, if you liken it to relationships outside of the work context as well, and to romantic relationships, you could say, well, I fell in love once and it went horribly wrong and I was hurt and I'm never going to fall in love again. Or you can say, well, I might be a little bit more cautious the next time, but actually I want to experience that wonderful thing that is love and being in a relationship. So I will put myself in that vulnerable position again, because the rewards are worth it. And I think that's the same in the business setting. You do it with a certain bit of caution, and I think the longer you've been around and the longer you've done these things, the more caution you maybe exert. But if you exert too much caution, you get to the point where you're actually blocking your own success and you're blocking the opportunities. So therefore, just like the person that would be too cautious in love and therefore end up on their own because they never let themselves get close to anyone, if it comes to business, if you never actually allow yourself that little bit of vulnerability, that little bit of opening up that allows you to properly connect with others, and form those business relationships, then you're also going to be blocking the opportunities, and you're not going to be getting the help that you could potentially get.
Yeah, or to extend that metaphor a little bit, in for Prof Services, it'd be like, if you were dating a girl or a guy and fell in love with them, and then they ended up marrying your best friend, so then you decide never to get married. Well, what's that going to do? It's not going to make them unhappy or you happy. You've got to figure out, okay, maybe that really wasn't my best friend, or maybe she wasn't the right one for me, or he wasn't the right one for me. And how do I move on, learn from this, grow from this, figure out what's really best for me? And then maybe I, start a different kind of a business, or maybe I decide I go into that business, but into a particular niche or an angle where I can outcompete them and get the benefit of the business idea as I wanted to see it implemented. Because nobody's going to implement the business idea the same as you. There's not just one computer company. There's not just one telephone company. There's not just one, monitor company. There's tons of competitors. So just because somebody did the same business because you told them about it doesn't mean that you can't go into that same business and do it better or different, and both of you could end up making money.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, you said something really interesting there about, what are you going to learn from the experience? And that's one of the absolute keys as well to resilience. In terms of the research that has been done into resilience, which is actually still a fairly new field when it comes to resilience. I think it was in about the 40s, wasn't it, that resilience was first coined as a term. And when you look at some of the research that's been done on that, actually a lot of it seems to indicate that resilience really ultimately boils down to not so much what happens to you. I mean, to some extent, we get more resilience as we get older because more stuff happens to us, but also the difference between resilient people and those who are not is the way that you actually react to the things that happen to you and how you take those and whether you decide that, okay, this has happened, but I'm still in control of what happens to me, and therefore I'm going to learn from this and grow from this, etc. And actually, Frank, you'd sent me a really interesting article, how people learn to become resilient. In fact, I'll pop the link for anybody who wants to read it.
Oh yeah, from the New Yorker.
Yeah, from the New Yorker, and that talks about a lot of that. There's a link now.
Great, thank you for that.
In that article as well, it really talked about that kind of, being a master of your own destiny and taking control, and what can you learn from things that have happened to you, and the difference, how that makes you resilient, and also how resilience is a continuum rather than a constant. So it's always a balancing act between the stresses that are kind of pushing against you, and on the other hand, the resilience that you have that allows you to withstand those stresses. And sometimes the stresses win, and sometimes the resilience wins. And as long as you can kind of keep the balance so that most of the time it's the resilience that wins and you're able to bounce back, then overall you're quite a resilient person, and you're going to be okay, and you're going to flourish and keep on growing and developing.
Right, and we've got to remember, I mean, life is a journey, business is a journey. If you're starting a company or running a business or whatever, it's a journey, and it's not just about, succeeding and making the money. It's about the life lessons that you learn along the way. So I've been saying a lot in some of my Blab conversations and interviews that, entrepreneurship is also a path of personal transformation as well. And we become better people. We have the opportunity to become better people through the lessons that we learn in business. Just like we're taking life lessons and applying them to our business to make our business better, you can take your business lessons and apply them to your life to make your relationships better with your spouse or children or parents, or you can also apply that to your sports or fitness training, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's all about the life journey and becoming better in the process.
Absolutely. And actually that links quite nicely maybe to one more point we can make in this Blab about something that's really important to resilience in your life, but in business as well. Now, I talk about gratitude, and I talk about gratitude in the sense of life, and being grateful for the people and the events in your life, and really focusing on that. But actually, when you look at that from a business perspective as well, so be grateful to the people that help you along the way. Be grateful to the customers that buy your products and services. Show them that gratitude as well. Tell the world that you're grateful for that kind of thing.
Right.
Then that kind of spreads this ripple of positivity around your business as well. And everybody appreciates somebody who is grateful for what's coming their way. And equally, that sort of sense of gratitude within your organization as well, with co-workers. Some of the best businesses in terms of people management are the businesses that have really good, genuine employee reward schemes, where colleagues can nominate colleagues. I do some work with a firm of lawyers over here who have just introduced, a tiny little perk, but that's actually been one of the biggest things in terms of how that's impacted on everybody taking responsibility for customer service. And they've introduced a chocolate cupboard. Maybe not the healthiest thing in the world, but, basically anybody, it could be a 16-year-old apprentice, or it could be the managing partner of the firm. If they hear somebody doing great customer service on a phone call, or if they see somebody helping a colleague and doing something really well, anything like that, they can just say, that was great, well done, and here's some chocolate from the chocolate cupboard, and then they all get written up, and then there's kind of prizes given out as well out of that. So it's again kind of making gratitude part of your working culture, making it part of your business culture as well as your personal life, and that spreads. And just like in your personal life, if you focus on gratitude for what's good, it takes your focus away a little bit from all the things that are wrong and that are making you miserable. And it makes you look for what's good in your life, and it makes you actually focus on that. When in business you focus on being grateful, again, it makes you focus not on the people who've perhaps stolen your idea, but it makes you focus on all the people who haven't stolen your idea and have actually helped you grow your business, on all the people that have helped you learn a new skill, learn a new way of doing something, who have connected you to somebody that's helped you, etc. So again, it just helps shift that focus from the what might go wrong to what could go fantastically right and what could be really great.
And then at the end of the day, what we focus on is what expands. So if you're focusing on being grateful and appreciative, you'll have more things to be grateful for and appreciative of in the long run over the course of your life. So why not focus on the things that you do want, which is focus on the positivity, focus on the gratitude. And I like the concept of the chocolate cupboard. But I also appreciate the comment of, maybe it's not the healthiest thing. So why not design incentive structures that are not only, not only acknowledging people, but are also long-term, healthy and helping the overall well-being of the people. Yeah. So maybe it's maybe like a letter acknowledgement, or it's a gift card to if they do 10 of these, then it's a gift card to a massage or a self-care type of a thing, or a night out dinner at a healthy restaurant or something like that, where there's where the reward actually reinforces the positivity. And you create like this sort of virtuous cycle, right?
Absolutely.
So I work with some health practitioners, and one of the things that we do is we work to align the incentives so that the administrative team also benefits and can get cash bonuses when they do their job well and they meet their goals for their job, because that's what helps also bring business or faster payments into the practice. So why shouldn't they be rewarded? And when they are rewarded, then things go more smoothly. And as a result, the whole company, the whole practice gets more. So by aligning those incentives, you help everybody grow. You help engage everybody on the team. Everybody's happier. And at the end of the day, the business grows faster.
Absolutely. I remember back in my days in recruitment, and I was recruiting in the food manufacturing industry, I was really impressed with this one company that I'd gone into, and they were a fruit packing company. So a lot of their workforce were people that worked on the shop floor, manual labourers, and a lot of them had come over here from the Eastern European countries. Many were from Poland, so they were away from their families. And the management of the company recognised that this was actually potentially a stressor that would affect them and their working lives as well as their personal lives. So one of the things they did is in their lunchroom, they actually set up some computers with internet access so that they could Skype their families in their lunch breaks. Which I thought was a really nice touch. But then on top of that, they also recognized that these people were on their feet all the time because they were working on a production line. So they actually brought in people to do foot massages during their lunch breaks as well.
Oh, wow.
Which is such a nice touch, isn't it, to do something like that. And what that does, not only people go, wow, what a wonderful business. You know, I went in as a recruiter and I thought, I want to put people into this business. But equally, what it does in terms of employee loyalty, in terms of employee productivity, etc., you know, then again, those ripple effects spread in terms of you doing something that's actually quite simple as a recognition of your staff and their needs, that actually has much wider repercussions and positive impact over a long period of time.
Yeah, we did that actually at my company. We had massage therapists would come in and give 10-minute, you know, back massages, chair back massages on like on a Friday or whatever. So, and it definitely helped. Everybody was like really into it and excited about it. It's like a nice way to break up your day.
Absolutely.
Like, ooh, it's my turn.
Wonderful, wonderful.
All right, so I see we're coming up to the top of the hour. I want to make sure that I can, I respect your time, and I'm sure you've got other things that you need to do. How much more time do you have that we can have a conversation?
I can keep going for a little while if people are still happy to.
Okay, sure. I want to give you an opportunity. I'm going to post your website here. So to learn more about Fred and her programs, please visit her website here. I've posted the link, which is www.happiness-speaker.co.uk. Thank
you. Yeah. And yes, to answer your question, Kate, certainly there are some blogs on my website and my business partners as well as Liz, if you are still there, if you want to pop your website up there. I'll also put the RWS one because we are quite, although it's a school's program, we do actually, sorry, typing and speaking together doesn't seem to compute in my brain. We are quite prolific blogging on there as well. So there's quite a few blogs on there in terms of the aspects that we've talked about in terms of resilience and wellbeing success. And although they are aimed at children and their parents, all of that really, as we've seen in the last hour, translates into everything that you do in business anyway, if you want to kind of grow your business and be successful. You're very welcome. So I hope that helps. And also, again, some of it is more educational related, but I'll put a link to my Huffington Post articles as well if you want to have a look at those. So,
oh yeah,
there you go.
So Kate's asked the question: How did we meet? We met through Lottie Hearn.
It was, yes.
Right? So it's about networking. So I met Lottie here on Blab, and I think we were probably in a Blab together, or maybe she was watching one of my Blabs, or maybe I was watching one of her Blabs. I'm not sure, but we connected and we did an interview together. And then she had a great experience and recommended that I should interview Fred. So that was how we connected.
Yeah. And again, I know Lottie through the Professional Speaking Association, and I've spoken for her in the Ireland region of the PSA. So I've spoken in Dublin for her. And so, yeah, she thought it would be a good idea, and it's been great. I'm really glad she connected us. So, and Lottie is a great connector, actually. We were talking about connectors earlier on. She is one of those people, you know, that is a great connector, especially online, because she is very prolific when it comes to Twitter especially, and now Blab as well. So, yeah.
And then, yeah, I think she had connected me to another speaker, and then did you connect me? You connected me to David, right? Or was that?
Yeah, because I'd lost my voice again, you see, because I've got to be so careful now with my voice, and I'd got a bit of a cold, and my speech therapist had said, do not do anything that's going to affect your voice. So I thought, right, okay, I'm not going to be able to do the Blab, which is why obviously I'd had to postpone, but I didn't want to leave you in the lurch at the last minute. So luckily I was able to draw upon David from my mastermind group, and he did a fantastic job for you, I think.
Yes, he was great. I actually got some very positive comments and feedback about him.
Oh, wonderful. I'll tell him.
With him as well. And then Elizabeth did post her site in there as well, elizabethwright.net.
Yeah.
And I want to let folks know, just I do Blabs here on a pretty regular basis between Monday and Friday. I'm not here every day, and it varies with my schedule because I'm also an active entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur, business coach, and consultant. So I have a lot of other things going on in my life, but I am out here 2 to 3 times per week, sometimes more, sometimes less, typically at noon Eastern Standard Time, the same time slot. So I had a Blab actually scheduled for tomorrow, which has been postponed to the 24th. but another happiness topic, which is the happiness formula. My friend Gary King is going to come on and speak with me, and that's been postponed to May 24th, but he's got a new book called The Happiness Formula.
Oh, that sounds good.
Just came out. So here's the link for the Blab, and that's going to be May 24th. I can only push it back to May 22nd because of the vagaries of Blab, but once in 2 days I'll be able to push it out by 2 more days, and the date will be correct. But if you want to subscribe to that and follow that now, that should be a fantastic conversation.
Oh, brilliant.
I think
that
you
sounds
get
great.
a lot out of it and enjoy that, Fred. And then his website is there as well, Gary King Live. He's a brilliant man, brilliant speaker, and has a tremendous amount of offers. So I think people watching this would also enjoy Gary, and I think you would enjoy meeting him as well.
That's really good, and I can just see, you get all the links. Yeah, I've now got all the links open as well on my computer, so I can go back and follow them. And somebody else, can you go up to look at what's been posted before? Because I saw something come up from. Can you scroll up?
Yeah, you can scroll up. So a couple of things, and then Kate had a question too, saying always try to leave the blabs I like open in a tab on my computer until I can retrieve all the links. So I post the links on my website or blog. If you follow me on Blab and you click on my name, right up here in this corner at Frank Clark Coach, and click on follow, then you can get notifications. So when I do notify, it'll notify you that I'm going live. And then separately, if you go and click on my Blab page, my Blab profile, you'll see the scheduled Blabs that I have coming up. So you'll see the one that I have with Gary coming up under my scheduled Blabs. You can also see all the replays that I've done. And then separately, I also have I have a website, which is frankclark.com/video, and you can see all of my past Blabs on there as well.
Fantastic. So, and as a Blab novice, when you actually actively do a Blab like this, will I then also get the replay videos and everything, or how does that work?
So, great question. So what I've done is I've made you a co-host of this Blab. So because you're now a co-host, you will be emailed the MP3 audio file as well as the MP4 video file, fantastic. And an embed code that you can use to embed this onto your website.
Ah, wonderful. That's really good to know. So definitely a brilliant tool, this, isn't it? It
is, absolutely.
I love it.
Fantastic for me.
Yeah. It's brilliant. And
I call it the 24/7 365 global networking event.
Sorry?
I know that's a mouthful, but I call it the 24/7 365 global networking event.
Ah, very good. Yeah. Well, it's definitely global. I think it's just fantastic, isn't it? That the sort of power of connectors, etc., and that we can just connect the way that we have, and then connect with other people. And the Talkinator, hello there, I think it's Peter Stewart, he was saying earlier on, how do we know each other? And then he said he's in the PSA and Toastmasters too. So yes, I think I've met Peter Stewart at a PSA event at some point, or certainly in PSA groups online. So hi, Peter. And Blab is British Finance. There you go.
I didn't know that. I know that they were financed originally through Bebo and a VC out in Silicon Valley, but maybe that's a British-based VC. So I don't know too much about the finances.
Wonderful. So do you think that you've got enough sort of resilience tips for entrepreneurs out of this? I mean, I can keep going. Absolutely. I'm sure I've got more I can share.
Absolutely. No, this has been fantastic. I want to say thank you very much for coming on and sharing with us, and your experience is fascinating with what you've gone through with your daughters and the multiple heart surgeries and cardiac arrest. God bless you for all you've gone through with that. I'm a dad also. My son actually had some pretty severe issues at birth and had the nuchal cord wrapped around his neck and oxygen cut off. So he was in the ICU for the first 10 days of his life or so. So I understand. And it's kind of like heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching when you're going through that as a parent. And you went through a lot more than we did. So God bless you.
There is no scale, really, is there? I mean, I think it's all down to it's relative. I mean, if your child's never had anything wrong with them and then suddenly they break their arm, then it's devastating to you as a parent. If your child has had a cardiac arrest and they break their arm, then you're upset, but it's on a different scale. I remember actually my youngest once broke her thumb playing hockey, and as I was sitting there in our local emergency room waiting for her to be seen, I actually said to her, I said, "This is wonderful. We're in hospital for something normal that just happens to kids." I was just like, "You're such a freak." But, it just puts everything in perspective. But there is no scale. You can't compare what happens to one parent or child from another, because whatever happens to your children is devastating and heartbreaking. But I will say this, and it is in a very strange, perverse way that, I've maybe embraced gratitude to that kind of level. But in some ways, I am grateful for everything that's happened. That doesn't mean that I would wish for it to have happened if I could have it any other way. But what has happened to us as a family, to our children, etc., it has shaped them into the young women that they are today. And I think it has made them in some ways more aware of their mortality, which is maybe not something you'd wish on somebody at their age, but actually it means that they embrace life more because of that, and they are maybe more willing to take risks and to really go for their dreams, etc. But equally, having children is stressful. Having teenagers is particularly stressful, and it does put the everyday stresses of just teenage kids into perspective. So when they are shouting at each other, screaming, slamming doors, when they take half an hour to negotiate who empties and reloads the dishwasher, and I set the table yesterday, so you need to do this, and the negotiations over a 5-minute job that take an hour. And you just sometimes, because of everything that's happened, not always, there are times when I just think, but,
of course,
sometimes, and quite often, I'm able to actually take a step back and just smile and think, aren't I lucky to experience this? Because we so very nearly didn't. And when you're able to do that, it takes all the sting out of the situation, and you can just laugh it off and think, oh, they're just teenagers doing what's normal, perfectly normal for teenagers to do. And actually, they're not going to be living with us for very long, because they're getting to that age where they're going to go off and do their own thing. So actually, one day I'll miss this. I'll miss the screaming and the door slamming and everything else. So let's just kind of sit back and think, yeah, it's life. And it's, so in a strange kind of way, everything that's happened, has made the normal parenting stuff much, much easier to do. So from that point of view, I'm quite grateful for it.
It's just mind over matter, right? If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, at this point, I'd like to just say thank you again so much for being on. I'm going to end the recording here. So again, the show is Perfectly Frank Conversations. I'm your host, Frank Clark. Our guest today was happiness expert and happiness speaker Fred Roberts. So thank you so much, Fred. It was an absolute delight having you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I wish Kate was over here, because I think she said earlier on she'd love to have a coffee, and I would love to have a coffee. And thank you so much for all your comments, Kate, and everybody else who's commented as well. And again, thank you so much, Frank, for having me on. It's been so much fun.
My pleasure. And I'm going to post your link one more time. Actually, I'll pin it up here. There it is. So
thank you very much.
Oops, I lost it for a second there. Well, it's happiness-speaker.co.uk, correct?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
All right. So be sure to follow Frederika on Blab and on Twitter. Please follow me on Blab and on Twitter as well. And I will look forward to seeing you guys all on our next show. So I think our next show is going to be Wednesday, but I'm waiting to confirm a speaker on that. And so I don't have a name, but it would be noon Eastern Standard Time this Wednesday, the 27th. Hope to see you guys come back for that. And thanks everybody for watching here today live. And thanks to everybody watching on the replays. We'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks, Fred. Bye-bye.